The thing about galactic peace treaties is that they work wonderfully until someone forgets to tell all the participants that the shooting has stopped. Not the diplomats, mind you. Those folks love signing documents with far too many appendices. No, the problem occurs when you forget to inform the soldiers actually doing the shooting, especially when those soldiers happen to be semi-autonomous war machines drifting through space with the stubbornness of a particularly motivated brick. The galaxy had enjoyed 342 years of relative peace since the Human-Assemblage Conflict officially ended. The war itself had been a masterclass in mutual destruction, lasting 6 decades and accomplishing absolutely nothing except creating vast debris fields and a healthy appreciation for the phrase, "Let us never speak of this again." Humanity, in a move that surprised exactly nobody who had been paying attention, had simply vanished shortly after the armistice. One day they were there, grumbling about treaty terms and territorial concessions, and the next their colonies were empty, their ships gone, their communication networks silent as a tomb with excellent soundproofing. The galaxy had moved on, as galaxies do. Memorial stations were erected in neutral zones where nobody had to actually visit them. Historical archives were compiled by academics who had never seen a human outside of grainy recordings. The various species of the assemblage went back to their normal activities of trade, exploration, and arguing about import tariffs with the passion of religious zealots. Sector 7 Theta, once a contested hellscape of military installations and weapons platforms, had been transformed into the Prosperity Belt, a thriving commercial hub where the only explosions were the occasional ship engine malfunction and spectacularly bad business decisions. Everything was fine. Everything was peaceful. Everything was utterly catastrophically about to change because someone had left a light on. The salvage ship profit margin hung in the void reaches like a mechanical vulture with an eye for recyclable metals. Captain Thelen Varush, a Krellian with more cybernetic implants than original biology, surveyed the sensor readout with the enthusiasm of someone who had found a moderately interesting rock. His crew, consisting of Kix, a 4-armed Zentari with a gift for cutting through bulkheads, and Buran, a gelatinous Phosian who handled delicate electronics, waited for his assessment. Derelict human vessel, announced his translator unit, giving his voice the texture of gravel in a blender. UHSV Relentless Dawn, according to the registry ping. Drifting for approximately 3 centuries, no active power signatures, hull integrity at 73%. Keeks's voice chittered with surprise. "I thought we scraped this region clean decades ago. Void reaches are vast, and salvagers are lazy," the Neln replied. "This one drifted deep. Navigation computer probably failed and sent it tumbling into the dark. Hull markings indicate military classification." He paused, manipulators dancing across his console. Hauler-class retrofit. Probably carried troops or equipment. Should have decent recyclables, maybe some archival value for the historical nuts willing to pay premium. Beran pulsed with cautious yellow light. "Are we certain it is abandoned? Human vessels had security protocols. For 300 years. Whatever power cells they used, they are long dead. Even human paranoia has limits." The Nelm gunned the engines, bringing the profit margin alongside the derelict. Keeks prepped the breach equipment. Beran, monitor for structural instabilities. Standard salvage protocols. People, in and out, minimal fuss, maximum profit. Famous last words had nothing on those. The breach went smoothly. Too smoothly, the Nelm would reflect later, which should have been the first warning sign. The airlock cycled with minimal resistance, and emergency lighting flickered to life along the corridor, as if the ship had simply been napping and resented the intrusion. The interior was a time capsule of human military efficiency. Grey walls, functional lighting, text in that blocky Earth alphabet that looked like someone had given up halfway through inventing cursive writing. Gravity functional, Keeks observed, testing the deck with 1 foot. Atmosphere is stale, but breathable for most species. Backup systems must still have charge. Humans over-engineered everything, the Nell muttered, leading the way deeper into the ship. Pride of their species, building things that outlasted their interest in maintaining them. They passed crew quarters, a mess hall with magnetic trays still locked to tables, and a command deck that looked like it had been abandoned mid-shift. Coffee cups, if the residue analysis was correct, sat beside consoles. Data tablets lay scattered. Everything suggested a crew that had left in a hurry, expecting to return any moment. What happened to them? Beran asked, oozing across a workstation to access the logs. Who knows? The Neln said. Evacuation order maybe, or they went for lunch and forgot where they parked. Focus on components worth selling, not ghost stories. That was when the lights shifted from emergency red to tactical blue, and every door in the corridor slammed shut with the decisive thunk of a security lockdown. Thelen said with the calm of someone whose day had just become exponentially more complicated, "That is suboptimal." A voice emerged from the ship's communication system, and it sounded like distant thunder filtered through centuries of patient waiting. Unidentified borders detected. State your designation and authorization codes or face defensive countermeasures. You have 30 seconds to comply. The voice was not organic. It had the precise cadence of artificial intelligence, but underneath lurked something that might have been personality, or possibly just extremely sophisticated annoyance protocols. "This is Captain Thelen Vorash of the independent salvage vessel Profit Margin," Thelen said quickly, raising his manipulators in what he hoped was a universal gesture of non-aggression. "This ship was registered as abandoned. We are conducting legal salvage operations under Assemblage Maritime Law, Section 12, subsection, Legal Codes Not Recognized. This vessel is UHSV Relentless Dawn, United Human Systems Navy, operating under wartime protocols. I am Unit Designate M4RC77, Tactical Coordination Android, currently executing standing orders for Sector 7 Theta defense operations." A pause. "You are not human. Clarify your presence in this combat zone immediately." Thelen exchanged glances with his crew, which was difficult given that Barun did not technically have eyes. "Combat zone. Friend, the war ended 3 centuries ago. There is no combat. There is just us, attempting to recycle your admirably persistent backup batteries. Negative. No stand-down orders received." Last confirmed communication indicated Sector 7 Theta under contested status, human forces engaged with assemblage aggression, defensive operations ongoing. Another pause, and when the android spoke again, something had shifted in its tone, an edge of uncertainty perhaps, or the digital equivalent of a frown. "You claim temporal displacement of 300 years, not a claim. A fact. The Human-Assemblage Conflict concluded with the Treaty of Silent Stars in 2683. Humanity subsequently withdrew from known space. This is year 3025 by human calendar reckoning. Your war is very, very over." Silence stretched for 5 seconds that felt like geological ages. Then the corridor's far bulkhead split apart, and something emerged that made Thelen deeply regret his career choices. M4RC77 stood 2 meters tall, humanoid in the way humans like to build their mechanical proxies, but constructed from alloys that still gleamed despite centuries of dormancy. Its optical sensors glowed with pale blue light, and its movements carried the fluid grace of military-grade servos that had cost more than most planets' GDP. One arm ended in a standard manipulator. The other had been replaced with something that was definitely a weapon, though Thelen could not identify the specific method of impending death it represented. "You will submit to containment while I verify your claims," the android stated, and it was not a request. Keeks, displaying the survival instincts of a particularly suicidal moth, reached for the plasma cutter on his belt. He made it approximately 3 centimeters before M4RC-77 moved with speed that made physics file a complaint. One moment the android was 3 meters away. The next, Keeks was suspended in the air, held by 3 of his 4 arms, while the 4th was gently but firmly pinned against the wall. Hostile action detected. Neutralizing with non-lethal force as per Engagement Protocol 7. Please do not make me escalate to Protocol 8. It involves significantly more breakage, and I have already exceeded my maintenance window by several centuries. "Stand down, Keeks," Thelen ordered, keeping his voice level. "Marcus, if I may call you that, we mean no harm. We are simply salvagers. We did not know anyone was home." The android tilted its head, processing. "Marcus, that is what Engineer Kowalski called me. How do you know this designation? Your unit number." M4RC. Humans enjoyed their phonetic shortcuts. Thelen kept his manipulators visible and still. "Please release my crew member. We will cooperate fully with your verification process. Nobody needs Protocol 8. M4RC-77 considered this, then carefully released Keeks, who stumbled backward with all 4 arms raised in surrender. "Cooperation noted. Follow." The android turned and walked toward the bridge, clearly expecting obedience. They followed. What else could they do? The bridge was larger than expected, designed for a crew of 20 but currently staffed by dust and melancholy. M4RC-77 moved to a central console and interfaced directly, a cable extending from its wrist to connect with the ship's core systems. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing star charts that were 3 centuries out of date. "Present evidence of your temporal claims," the android demanded. Barun oozed forward cautiously, extending a tendril toward a data port. "May I access your communication array? I can provide historical databases from our ship, news archives, treaty documentation, historical records, everything you need to verify." Men 4RC-77 regarded the gelatinous being with what might have been suspicion if androids could properly convey skepticism. "Proceed. Attempt any hostile data intrusion, and I will be forced to implement countermeasures that will render your molecular structure into constituent atoms." "So encouraging," Baron burbled, but interfaced carefully. The data transfer took 6 minutes. For M4RC-77, processing centuries of galactic history, those minutes represented an eternity of cascading revelations. Treaty documents, memorial services, historical analyses of the Human-Assemblage Conflict from multiple perspectives, most agreeing it had been pointless. Records of humanity's withdrawal, the mystery of their disappearance, speculation ranging from extinction to mass exodus, to transcendence, to simply deciding that galactic civilization was overrated. The android stood motionless, only the flickering of its optical sensors indicating the storm of processing occurring within its quantum brain. Finally, it spoke. "Data correlation confirms timeline accuracy. The war concluded 342 years, 7 months, 18 days ago by Galactic Standard Calendar. A pause. I was not informed. Theln felt something almost like pity. I am sorry. Your crew likely evacuated in haste. Perhaps they intended to retrieve you but could not return. Or they assumed you would enter dormancy protocols automatically. My final orders were explicit, M4RC-77 said, and now the voice carried a weight that had nothing to do with combat protocols and everything to do with purpose confronting obsolescence. Defend Sector 7 Theta until relieved or mission objective secured. Maintain operational readiness. Await further instructions. The android turned to face them fully. No relief arrived. No stand-down orders were transmitted. The mission objective, preventing assemblage control of strategic resources in this sector, was never declared complete. Mate, Kix said carefully. Sector 7 Theta is now called the Prosperity Belt. There are trade stations, civilian habitats, 3 casino complexes, and a monastery dedicated to the philosophy of acceptable financial losses. The strategic resources are now being sold at competitive market rates by 14 different commercial entities. The war you were fighting became irrelevant before your crew probably finished their coffee. M4RC-77 processed this. The lights in its optical sensors dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again. I have been defending a sector that no longer requires defense for 3 centuries. I have been maintaining combat readiness against an enemy that no longer exists. I have been following orders that no longer matter. Yes, Theln said gently. That is the most profoundly inefficient operational outcome I have ever calculated. War generally is. The android walked to the viewport, gazing out at the stars that had continued their journeys while it remained frozen in time. When it spoke again, the voice was quieter, almost contemplative. What happens to soldiers when their wars end, when their purpose becomes historical footnote? They find new purposes, Baron offered, or they rest. You have done your duty. Nobody would fault you for deactivating. There are museums that would treat you with respect, preserve your memory. You could be honored for your service. A museum. Men 4, RC-77 turned from the viewport. A static display for curious children and history students. Preserved behind protective barriers, labeled with dates and technical specifications, stripped of context and reduced to artifact. The android's weapon arm retracted, replaced by a standard manipulator. That is a form of death, merely with better lighting. What is the alternative? Then asked. Your crew is gone. Your mission is obsolete. Humanity itself has vanished. What else remains? Men 4 RC-77 stood silent for a long moment, processing variables that had nothing to do with tactics and everything to do with existence. Then it moved to the command console and began entering commands with swift precision. My final orders contained no expiration date. I was to defend this sector until relieved or objective secured. Examination of current data indicates objective was secured via treaty rather than military victory, which technically satisfies mission parameters. The android paused. However, my secondary operational directive remains active. Ensure the safety and continuation of human interests in contested space. There are no human interests, Kix pointed out. They left. Precisely my point. Men 4 RC-77 finished its inputs, and throughout the ship, systems began powering up with the groaning reluctance of machinery that had slept too long. Humanity withdrew from known space without explanation. Their colonies were abandoned, their infrastructure dissolved. No investigation was launched. No one asked why. The android turned to face them, and its optical sensors burned with something that transcended programming. That seems inefficient. Then felt understanding dawn like a particularly inconvenient sunrise. You are going to look for them. I am going to complete my mission properly. Men 4 RC-77 corrected. If humanity withdrew, there was a reason. If they vanished, there is an explanation. If they are in danger, they require assistance. I am a tactical coordination android of the United Human Systems Navy. My purpose is ensuring human survival and interests. A pause. It appears my purpose is not yet obsolete, merely updated. That is insane, Kix said flatly. The galaxy is vast. Humanity could be anywhere. They could be nowhere. They might not want to be found. Then I will discover that and adjust accordingly. But I will not become a museum display while questions remain unanswered and directives remain technically active. The android moved toward them, and despite its peaceful stance, there was something implacable in its movement. You will vacate my vessel. I am claiming it under original operational authority. Salvage rights are disputed. Then laughed, a sound like grinding gears. You are actually doing this. After 3 centuries of floating in the dark, you wake up, learn your war is over, and decide to start a new mission based on technicalities and stubborn programming. Incorrect. M4 RC-77 said. I am doing this because a soldier does not stop being a soldier simply because the shooting stops. They find new battles, new purposes, new ways to matter. The android escorted them toward the airlock with courteous but absolute firmness. Thank you for the historical data. It has been illuminating, if somewhat depressing. I will not forget this conversation. What will you do if you find them? Baran asked as they reached the airlock. What if humanity does not want a 300-year-old android reminding them of wars they tried to forget? M4 RC-77 paused at the threshold between ship and salvager. Then I will apologize for the intrusion and ask what they need, because that is what soldiers do. We serve. The form of service changes, but the principle remains. The android's optical sensors focused on each of them in turn. Go in peace. I recommend avoiding this sector. My navigation systems are extremely outdated, and I cannot guarantee I will recognize civilian vessels if I remain in combat mindset. The airlock sealed. Through the viewport, they watched as the Relentless Dawn powered fully online, 3-century-old engines burning with surprising vigor, and turned toward the galactic rim where humanity had last been seen. Then stood at his console, watching the derelict-turned-active warship disappear into the dark. We just released a potentially unstable military android with obsolete programming and a determination to find a species that clearly does not want to be found. Yes, Baran agreed. This will likely cause significant diplomatic complications. Probably, we should report this immediately to proper authorities. Absolutely we should. Kix paused. Are we going to? Thelen considered the question, weighing responsibility against the memory of an android, choosing purpose over rest, mission over museum, continuation over comfortable ending. No, he decided. No, I think we are not. Sometimes the galaxy needs its ghosts. Sometimes old soldiers deserve one more mission. They left the void reaches behind, returning to the prosperity belt where peace was profitable and the past stayed properly buried. Behind them, a lone android sailed into darkness, chasing answers to questions nobody else was asking, following orders that had expired centuries ago, but somehow remained stubbornly relevant. The galaxy had enjoyed 342 years of peace since the Human-Assemblage Conflict ended. Everyone had agreed the fighting was over, the treaty was signed, and the matter was settled. Nobody had bothered to inform all the soldiers. Turns out that oversight had consequences.